My name is Brianna. I'm 27 years old, and I've always been the one who stayed quiet to keep the peace. I grew up in a family where appearances were everything. Matching holiday outfits, coordinated social media posts, Christmas cards with scripted messages about gratitude and blessings. We were that family. The one people assumed was close, loving, well-adjusted. But if you peeled back the filters and smiles, you'd find something else entirely. My mom, Donna, has always been the nucleus. Everything revolves around her. And if you fit into her plan, her rhythm, her version of how life should go, you got to stay in orbit. If you didn't, you drifted. I learned that the hard way. But before I get into what happened, I want to say this. If you've ever been the quiet one in your family, the one left out of group texts, the one who never got asked what you wanted, the one always doing fine because no one bothered to ask, then subscribe to this channel. Seriously, this space is for you. We share stories here that hit deep. Not fairy tales. Real stuff. Emotional truths that make you feel seen. Because being excluded doesn't make you invisible. Not here. Now let me tell you what really happened. It was a rainy Thursday when she said it. I was visiting my parents for dinner. A rare occasion these days, mostly because the air at that house always felt just a little too heavy. Mom was bustling around the kitchen in her usual way, barking orders, checking the oven every 3 minutes like the lasagna might escape. Dad was on his tablet in the living room. My sister, Alyssa, was scrolling on the couch. Everything looked normal. So normal it almost lulled me into believing I hadn't been distant lately. That maybe I'd imagined the slow drift over the past year. And then, as I reached into the fridge to get a drink, Mom leaned in close and said it like she was telling me the time. "We'll be traveling without you this time." Turned slowly. What? She didn't blink. Just went back to the stove. The trip. The island. "We're going without you." I laughed, unsure if it was a joke. "What do you mean?" She looked at me like I was asking something foolish. "You've been distant." Honestly, it didn't feel right to include you when you don't even seem to want to be around us lately. The words hit like ice down my spine. I wasn't aware this was a punishment. "It's not," she said flatly. "It's just better this way. Less tension." I stood there stunned. Alyssa said nothing. Dad didn't look up. The room stayed quiet. I left before dessert. That night, I sat on the edge of my bed staring at the same family photo that had hung on my wall since college. One from a beach vacation 5 years ago, all of us smiling, matching blue shirts. I stared at it like it belonged to strangers. I'd spent most of my 20s trying to be the version of me they wanted. Supportive. Quiet. I went to college nearby because Mom said she couldn't bear the distance. I turned down a job in New York because it wasn't the right time. I stayed for every birthday, every holiday, even when I wanted to travel or just rest. And now I was being left behind for not playing the part anymore. So I did something I'd never done before. I opened my laptop. I searched the island name Mom had mentioned in passing a few weeks ago. Culebra, a small, stunning island off the coast of Puerto Rico. Then I searched for flights. Then I searched for hotels. And I searched for luxury rentals. And there it was. The top listing. Ocean view penthouse. Private balcony, infinity pool, chef's kitchen. It cost more than I should have spent. I booked it anyway. Same island. Same week. Not for revenge. Not even to show them. But to remind myself that being left behind doesn't mean I can't move forward on my own.
Dede fleu out to colebra, e de dinte tel anione e was going. Not my mom. Not Alissa. Not even my closest friends. You wanted the silence. You wanted the freedom of no explanations, no softened words, no avard pauses after are you okay? The flight was short, one of those teeny planes that makes you feel like you're flying in a toy. As we descended over the island, e saw the turquoise sea straight like silk in every direction. The shorelines curved gently like arms welcoming. Buttered, as if to say, you don't need permission to belong here. The taxi ride to the penthouse took 15 minutes along winding coastal roads. And then I saw it. The building was modern but understated. Tu quedinto a cliffside with floor to ceiling windows that opened onto nothing but sky in the ocean is so that the front door with the key in hand and felt something yet. Felt in a long time. Not excitement. Not even peace. But presence. Like he was finally standing a moment that didn't belong to anyone else. The penthouse was everything the listing promised and more. White joyride flowers, soft linen furniture, a open kitchen that smelled faintly of citrus and salt. The balcony alone was bigger than my entire apartment back home. There was an outdoor shower, a mock, and a view of the sunrise that made me breathe the first time I saw it I didn't unpack right away. I the walk barefoot onto the balcony and let the wind carry everything I been holding. The grief, the anger, the old ash of wanting to be chosen by my family by anyone, and the avere truth that I had stopped choosing myself a long time ago that night. I walk into the town center. Culebra is the flash. It doesn't try to be Cabo Work West. It's que é humble, real, e bulk dinner from a food truck grilled my tacos with lime and red cabbage, and sat on a bench watching the locals gathering the plaza. There was music playing softly from somewhere, a mix of salsa and slow guitar, kids chasing each other, a woman selling a dimad jewelry from a voting cart and then so then. Across the square, my mom, Alissa, and my dad walking together toward one of the water from restaurants. E froze. They had the same. They were dressed up mom in white linen, Alissa with her hair curled, dad in his usual button down, logging at something, looking like a postcard. For a moment I saw to there and let the familiar feeling rise you don't belong. But this time, I didn't shrink. I didn't turn around and disappear. I walk in the opposite direction slowly deliberately. Because I had come here to be seen by them. I had come to see myself. The next morning, I woke up early and made coffee in the quay. I sat on the balcony, the sky still pale blue with pink edges, and opened my journal. Day 1 I wrote. I saw them. I didn't feel nothing. But I didn't feel broken either. I spent the rest of the day exploring, Flamenco Beach, the nature reserve, a tiny art gallery run by an older couple who painted scenes of the ocean from memory. I bought one. It was small and simple, just a woman in a red dress standing at the edge of the tide. She looked like she was about to step forward. I think I knew that feeling. That night, I got a message from Alissa. Did you know you are coming here? I stared at it for a long time. Then replied, yeah. Mom told me. She didn't invite me. No response. An hour later, another message. Are you okay? It typed, then erased. Typed again. I'm discovering that I'm more than okay. I'm finally doing something for me. She didn't reply. And I didn't need her to.
The third morning on the island started with thunder. It rolled softly over the sea before the rain hit. Light at first, then sudden and hard, washing the balcony like it was rinsing something away. I sat inside with a blanket around my shoulders, watching it fall. The windows steamed slightly from the heat of my coffee. For a long time I didn't move. I just breathed. There was something about rain on an island that felt different than rain back home. Less gloomy. More necessary. Like it wasn't here to ruin anything, just to remind you what cleansing feels like. My phone buzzed. It was my mother. Message. Just 4 words. We saw you yesterday. That was it. No, how are you? No, let's talk. Just an observation. An acknowledgement that I'd punctured their perfect vacation bubble. I stared at the message for a full minute, then locked my phone and set it face down. Let her sit with that. I spent that afternoon kayaking around the bay with a small local tour group. No one asked what I did for a living. No one commented on my last name or made subtle jokes about my personality. We just paddled, laughed at the spray, and marveled at the sea turtles swimming near the surface. Felt light. Not invisible, free. Later that night, I returned to the penthouse and cooked for myself. Shrimp sautéed with garlic, fresh mango salad, and a glass of white wine on the balcony. The air smelled like wet palms and hibiscus. I was halfway through dinner when there was a knock at the door. My heart jumped. I opened it to find Alissa standing there, hair pulled back, a blue sundress clinging to her from the humidity. "I'm sorry to show up like this," she said quickly. "But I had to see you." I hesitated for a second, then stepped aside. She walked in, slowly taking in the space. "Wow, you really did this." I said nothing, just watched her. She turned to me. "You didn't tell me you were coming here. You didn't tell me you were going without me," I replied. Her face fell. "It wasn't my idea." "I know," I said. "But you didn't speak up either." She sighed. "It's not that simple with Mom. You know that." "I do know that," I said, firmer now. "And I'm tired of pretending like that excuses everything." We stood in silence for a moment, the waves crashing softly below the windows. "I read your message," she said finally. "The one you sent me." He nodded. "I think you're brave," she added. My throat tightened. "You're not the only one she controls, Bree," she said. "You're just the first one to walk away." I felt something break open inside me, something old and tight and unspoken. "I didn't want to hurt anyone," I whispered. "You didn't," Alyssa said. "You just made it harder for the rest of us to keep lying to ourselves." She sat down on the couch and pulled her legs up beneath her. "Do you remember that summer when you wanted to go to that writing camp and she said no because it was too far?" she asked. I nodded slowly. "She told me later that she thought it would make you weird and ungrateful. Like, wanting things outside of her plan was a threat." I laughed once, short, bitter. "That sounds about right." "I think I'm still scared of her," Alyssa admitted. "I was too," I said. "Until she stopped pretending I was part of the family." She looked at me, and for the first time in a long time, there was no comparison in her eyes. No quiet competition. Just regret. Maybe awe. We talked until midnight. Not about the past. Not much. But about who we were becoming now that we weren't trying to be who she wanted. When she left, she hugged me. Like she hadn't realized she missed me until right then. And I stood there at the door long after she walked away, not crying. Not broken. Just quietly whole. The next morning, I woke up feeling something I hadn't felt since before college. Light. Not happy exactly, but clear. Like something had finally shifted inside me. Something long overdue. I walked barefoot onto the balcony, pulled the blanket around my shoulders, and watched the clouds peel away from the horizon. I thought about Alyssa. About how different she'd been last night. Less guarded, more real. And how hard it must be to stay inside our mother's gravity, day after day, and still pretend you're not suffocating. Then I thought about Mom. And I wondered what kind of storm was brewing on her end. The message came in just after noon. "Mom, you could have told us you were coming here. I hope this wasn't meant to make a scene." A scene. I stared at the screen, stunned. All this effort I'd made to stay quiet, to mind my own business, to not walk into their restaurant or text anyone until I was ready. And now she was accusing me of drama? I didn't reply. An hour later, another message. "Mom, we'll be at Café del Sol at 6. If you want to talk, come." No apology. No acknowledgement of the words she'd whispered in the kitchen back home that set all of this in motion. But I went. Not for her. For me. Café del Sol was a small seaside restaurant, candlelit and breezy, with the ocean only a few steps away. When I arrived, she and my dad were already seated. Alyssa wasn't there. Mom didn't stand when I approached. She barely looked at me. "Thanks for coming," my dad said with his usual neutral calm. I sat down. We ordered. The air was thick with things unsaid. Finally Mom spoke. "I know you think I'm some kind of villain." I didn't flinch. "I don't think you're a villain," I said. "I think you're someone who needs control more than she needs connection." Her lips tightened. "I didn't mean to hurt you," she said, but her tone was defensive, not remorseful. "You didn't have to mean it. You still did." A long silence stretched between us. Then she said something I didn't expect. "You've always made me nervous." I blinked. "What?" "You were always different. Asking hard questions. Wanting space. You didn't just fall in line the way Alyssa did." It felt like you were always 2 steps away from leaving us. I swallowed hard. Maybe I was, I said. But not because I didn't love you. Because I didn't feel seen. She looked down at her plate. Dad stayed quiet like always. I didn't know how to handle that, she admitted. And instead of asking, I said softly, you excluded me. Another pause. Then, in the smallest voice I'd ever heard from her, I was afraid if I invited you you'd say no. And I couldn't take one more rejection. The words hit like wind through an open door. Unexpected, cold, and suddenly revealing everything inside. I sat back in my chair, breath catching in my throat. So it wasn't punishment. It was fear. Twisted, controlling fear dressed up as confidence. We didn't solve everything that night. We didn't hug. We didn't laugh or cry. But we sat at the same table in the same truth, without either of us walking away. And when the check came I paid it. 'Cause I could. 'Cause I wanted to. Because this trip was mine. And no one was going to rewrite that. That night, I returned to the penthouse and packed slowly. I had one day left on the island. And I planned to spend it exactly as I'd spent the others. On my own terms. On my last morning in Culebra, I woke up before the sun. The sky was still dark, stars barely visible through a veil of moving clouds. I wrapped myself in a blanket and stepped onto the balcony one last time, the air cool and soft on my skin. It wasn't just another goodbye to a place. It felt like I was closing the door on an entire version of myself. The one who waited. The one who apologized. The one who mistook silence for survival. I had spent my entire life orbiting my mother's moods, adjusting to the temperature in every room she walked into, trying not to take up too much space. But here, in this borrowed penthouse, I had taken up all the space I needed. And I wasn't sorry. I made breakfast slowly. Eggs, toast, avocado, coffee in a ceramic mug I would have bought if the rental allowed souvenirs. While I ate, I scrolled through old photos on my phone. Family trips, birthdays, holidays. I could see it now. How I had always been slightly on the edge of the frame. Smiling, yes, but just a little too posed. A little too practiced. There was a version of me that had learned how to belong by disappearing a little. I wasn't going back to her. At the airport, Alyssa texted me. Let me know when you land. I want to hear about everything. Really? I smiled, small and warm. Maybe we'd never be the kind of sisters who shared clothes and secrets. But we were starting something new, something that felt honest. And honesty, I was learning, is its own kind of intimacy. Back home, everything looked the same. My apartment, my job, the view from my window. But I wasn't the same. I cleaned out my closet. Not just the clothes but the emotional clutter. The blouses I bought because Mom said they were classy. The shoes that hurt but looked put together. I donated them without ceremony. I changed my phone background to a photo I'd taken from the penthouse balcony. Sunset over the water, the sky dipped in gold and lavender. Reminder. Not of escape, but of return. Return to me. A week later, Mom called. Not to argue. Not to lecture. Just to ask how I was doing. It was short, careful, like someone learning to speak a new language. And I didn't rush to fill the silence. I let her sit with the discomfort of not controlling the conversation. Because growth isn't just about becoming. It's about allowing others to sit in the truth they created. If you're still here, thank you. For following this story. For letting me tell it the way it really happened. For not needing it to be perfect. If you've ever been the one left out, the one quietly holding resentment in your chest like a stone, this is your reminder. You are allowed to take up space. You are allowed to go anyway. You are allowed to choose yourself even if no one else does. Subscribe to this channel if you want more stories like this. Real, raw, and honest. Not because life always makes sense, but because sometimes telling the truth is the most powerful way to take your life back. We post every week. And we don't whisper here, we speak clearly. For people like you. For people like me. Brianna.